Hello, today I'm going over cell organelles lecture part 1. So we're going to cover some of the organelles that we find inside cells and talk about their function. And then I'm going to have a second part to cover other organelles and their functions. There's just a lot to go over with this particular topic. So this is a general overview introduction to these parts of the cell. All right, and we're starting with kind of the skeleton of the cell, the cytoskeleton. The cytoskeleton is a network of protein fibers inside the cell that gives it shape, support, and organization. So just like our skeleton, you have support there, which allows us to move around, and it provides support against gravity. But in this particular case, they can also be used to move stuff through the cell, like a railway system. It is made up of three main types of fibers: microtubules, actin filaments, and intermediate filaments. These structures help the cell maintain its shape and allow it to move and change form when needed. We'll find that the cell can go through a lot of different forms as it reproduces or duplicates, and cytoskeleton fibers play an important role in all that. Okay, so this next image, we have some colored in microscope images, and you can see one cell here, there's another cell and another cell, several cells there, and then here you have two cells that are pulling apart, so one cell becoming two new cells. The cytoskeleton also plays an important role in moving things inside the cell. For example, it helps transport organelles and vesicles to different locations, almost like a roadway system. Either way. It is also essential for cell division, where it helps pull chromosomes apart so each new cell gets the correct genetic information. That's what's going on here. It's pulling apart genetic information. Some will go over to this side, and then some of this will go to that side, forming the two new cells. More on that in another lecture. All right, now we get to the nucleus. The nucleus is the control center of the cell, where the cell's DNA is stored. So you're always going to see analogies used for the organelles, like what their function is compared to oftentimes like things in a city or rooms in a building. And the control center here, we want to think about that as what's controlling the whole system. You can also think about it like the brain and the human body. And in the nucleus, that's where all the DNA is stored. So this is what needs to be passed on from one generation to the next. DNA holds the instructions for making proteins, which are necessary for the cell to function. Most of your DNA is actually to make proteins. It's instructions to make proteins. The nucleus is surrounded by a double membrane called the nuclear envelope, which protects the DNA and controls what enters and exits. So here's the double membrane. You have one side wraps around two sides. That's the double membrane. And then there's channels or pores that allow certain things to go into and out of the nucleus. Inside the nucleus, DNA is organized into structures called chromosomes. So let's take a look at this image. We have our cell, then we have the nucleus, and then we have DNA. It looks like a bunch of X's. Well, that's the DNA all wrapped up in a special structure that we call a chromosome. You can unwind this to get to the actual DNA, but while it's stored in the nucleus, it's kind of bound up tight into these structures, these chromosomes. Let's see. The nucleus also contains the nucleolus, which makes ribosomes needed for protein synthesis. Because of its role in storing and protecting genetic information or genetic material, the nucleus is one of the most important parts of the cell. Again, control center, right? It's running everything, or the purpose behind things. All right. Now in our image here, we have the nucleus, which we covered. You can see a little bit of the cytoskeleton in these images in the purple, but what we're going to look at now is an organelle called the endoplasmic reticulum. That's this structure here that you see outside of the nucleus. It's these two, actually. There's the smooth endoplasmic reticulum and the rough endoplasmic reticulum. The endoplasmic reticulum is a system of folded membranes found throughout the cell. There are two types: rough ER, which is this stuff, which has red bumps on it, which is covered with ribosomes and helps make proteins, and smooth ER, which makes lipids and helps detoxify harmful substances. The ER also acts like a transport system, moving molecules to different parts of the cell. So you can kind of think about it like on the rough ER, we've got our ribosomes, which are making things. They're churning out proteins. Then those might go to the smooth ER to be labeled or prepared for sending somewhere else. Ribosomes are tiny structures made of RNA and protein that are responsible for building proteins. Again, the ribosomes you see here are all these little red dots. They can be found floating freely in the cytoplasm or attached to the rough ER. Proteins made by ribosomes are essential for nearly every process in the cell. That's important. Proteins are responsible for nearly every process in the cell. Again, most of our DNA is coding to build proteins. From repairing damage to carrying out chemical reactions. All right, so just a couple more here. The Golgi apparatus. So in this image, we see over here in green, the Golgi kind of looks like this folded area of the endoplasmic reticulum. The Golgi apparatus is an organelle that works like a packaging and shipping center for the cell. It takes proteins and lipids made in the endoplasmic reticulum, modifies them, and then sorts and packages them into small sacs. So the proteins go to the Golgi, and then they're going to be delivered to specific locations, and the Golgi can dictate where those locations are going to be. Inside the cell, outside the cell, different parts of the cell. These sacs are then sent to their correct destination inside or outside the cell. Vesicles are small, bubble-like sacs that carry materials around the cell. So you can see that this is a vesicle, not the stuff inside of it, that's what it's carrying, but that blue bubble is the vesicle. It's like a semi-truck, right? The truck is delivering materials or goods or something like that. They can transport proteins, lipids, and other molecules between organelles or to the cell membrane for release. So a vesicle might be taking these somewhere else, like maybe it's taking these proteins to the nucleus because it needs to be there, or on top of the nucleus for some reason. Or maybe these proteins need to be expelled from the cell to then send some further message to other cells. Vesicles are important for keeping the cell organized and making sure materials get where they are needed. All right, so that's the first part. We're going to cover more about organelles later, but this will get us started. Let me know if I can help. Thanks.